Hey, Joe. Can you hear me?
Hi, I can hear you.
Oh, good.
Hi, Joe Dragoni. How are you?
Nice to meet you again. I saw you on a previous Zoom. Pre
Okay. Yes, I think so. I'm not sure. Possibly. So I guess we're waiting for Karen and
Well,
Dylan.
Dylan,
Yep. Yep.
Dylan just
Dylan.
showed up here.
Yep. There he is.
Hi, Dylan.
Hello, I'm here.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Hi, Henry.
Hold on one
Hi.
second. Let me check my phone. That could be Karen. Hold on.
Okay. It looks like a nice, comfortable room.
Thank you.
I
Yeah,
like, I like that painting. Are you a surfer?
yes, I like to surf. So I do a lot of freshwater surfing,
Really?
more so than saltwater surfing.
Where do you do that?
Behind a special boat. So a freshwater boat that produces a wave behind it.
Wow. Is it like water skiing kind of, or
Yeah, it's just
except
surfing,
without a cord?
surfing behind a boat. Yeah.
How
So
cool is that? I never heard of that.
yeah, they call it wake surfing.
Yeah.
So, but it's literally the same as catching a wave in the ocean, but
Yeah.
it's a little bit more consistent. So
So you can go for longer periods.
yeah, yeah, you can surf the same wave for
All right. Well,
anywhere
that
if you
that
wanted
was
to.
her. She's having, as usual, having trouble for some reason joining the meeting. She's at our other house, so we can start, and then if she joins in, that's fine if she can figure out her issues.
Okay, here she is.
Okay.
Karen, you're muted. Okay.
Oh, here I
Hi.
am. Hi.
Hi there.
Sorry, wasn't able to get on right away. How
Oh,
are you
that's
doing, Henry?
good. How are you?
So good. I'm so happy you're able to do this with us as we're just starting to build here, and I really appreciate it.
So you decided to go forward.
Yeah, well, we'd already bought the property, so
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
yeah, so we're gonna do everything we can, like I said, to shield and as much as we possibly can. And
Good.
Dylan, did you introduce yourself? Is our
Yes. Hello.
the most amazing builder in Winter Park.
I
So
hear he's a good surfer too.
Well, we
He
actually
was
had a
asking about my painting in the background and asked if I surfed. And I said I'm primarily a freshwater surfer, and so I was sharing about our wake surfing experience while
oh
you guys
nice,
oh
were painting.
cool.
very cool.
Very.
So Dylan, do you want to just kind of explain to Henry kind of how
Ye-
what's typical as far as a part of your build that may at least in the basic construction that may help mitigate some of these issues?
Yeah, well, actually, I have a question for Henry just from a construction method. What what have you found research wise that will help mitigate, the risk, the harmful EMFs, the EMRs? What are some construction methods that can help mitigate?
That's a good question. Yeah, there's a number of things. Uh, One of them, interestingly, is building materials. So in building biology, because it goes beyond just the EMFs and the EMR, the electromagnetic radiation, uh, they always propose thick wall construction. So there's a number of different materials that it's not mainstream, but it's like autoclaved aerated concrete is very popular. It does cost more money, and the purpose of thick wall is primarily to like particularly good in a climate like Florida, because it is highly highly able to absorb moisture and then release it without creating any mold. It's called high level of hygroscopicity. And it also, so it's a really, really good insulation. You can get them in different block sizes, etc.
And what do you call it again? What's
It's called well, the term is AAC. It's autoclaved aerated concrete. And
Okay.
there's a company not far, well, it's in the kind of in the middle of Florida, so it's not far away, that is a distributor of that or manufacturer of that. I think it's called Aircon, AERCON. And it requires, as long as I assume you're building with some kind of concrete or blocks, or is that it?
Yeah. Typically we would do a first floor CMU concrete block construction, and then second floor is typical wood frame 2x6, 2x8. And then we typically do spray foam insulation for all of the second floor framed walls, roof sheathing. We also inject foam in the block cells. And then typically we do a foil back insulation on all of the block. And then on the first floor block exterior, we would do a stucco aggregate material. On the second floor, we would use a wire, paperback wire mesh over the framed sheathing, for the aggregate to apply to. And so, and then in addition, from a roof decking, we use a system called ZIP. So as a waterproof moisture barrier, it's taped. Then on top of that, we would do a peel and stick aggregate asphalt underlayment, and then either a asphalt shingle, tile shingle, or metal roof.
Right.
And so that's typical. In some cases, we would do 2-story block CMU, whereas, this house actually is a good candidate for a 2-story block CMU because of the way it stacks on top of each other, first and second floor. Oftentimes, we don't have that luxury or the convenience, I should say, of doing 2-story block because of different articulation codes in Winter Park. But that's kind of typical. Always we're doing, block construction first floor, hands down, regardless.
Yeah, so the block construction is gonna do a better job of helping to mitigate the RF. The problem is that the property is so close to this giant tower, and they haven't stopped. It's not just the fact that there's a tower there, is they have these initiatives of generations of cellular technology. So we're a good ways through the 5th generation or 5G, and they already have 6G planned. And what they do is they just swap out antennas. So now this stuff is going to get much worse and much worse, and it's very close.
Mhm.
So you want to figure out as many ways as possible to keep that out of the house. It's not going to help you once you walk outside. So if your kids are playing a lot outside, they're going to be exposed. But the most important time is when you're sleeping, that you want this stuff not hitting. It's hard to avoid it these days. Anywhere you go.
So I do have a question regarding, and I'm sure you may get into the report, but some of the questions I have, which I'll kind of jump back over to the construction methods.
Yes.
That I just have, again, you're the expert. I have kind of some intuitive thoughts on the construction methods that we use based on history of most of the homes, if not all of the homes we build. there's a constant complaint that our homeowners cannot get cell service in their house. In fact, during construction, once our shell is built, it's almost impossible to get cell service in the homes that we build. Based on the construction methods, the windows, the high energy efficiency features, which I assume would have some EMF, EFR, self-service blocking properties just naturally, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
then we're in a community that has lots of trees and canopies and organic material that is usually surrounding the homes. So I would assume that probably has some absorption properties that are blocking some of that. So I guess my question is like looking at the report, I'm on page, it looks like it's
Oh,
three.
let me get there.
One, 2, 3. So I think it's the third page, and it's like survey number 1, and it says table 1 RF, and it says locations. And so it has some frequencies of what was measured, right? And the red is the extreme concern. And so the facing tower where it faces, when it says facing tower west, does that mean the property, like the subject property, or does that mean the tower itself?
Let me get down to that page there.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. This is the third page where
Third page, yep.
Yeah.
Table 1 RF.
Oh, when I said facing tower, I was using a directional antenna.
Okay.
So my meters that I use I can change out antennas. So I can use an omni antenna, which measures the general radiation in an area. Think of it like a bubble. And then I have a directional antenna, so I can, because I wanted to see where was this stuff coming from.
Okay. So you're sitting on the property with an antenna measuring.
I stood there and
Okay.
I took a reading facing the tower and away from the tower. And you can see when I'm facing away from the tower, the directional antenna is very specific. So it's
Gotcha.
not like a really wide angle thing. So it's very specific. And you could see the readings when you're pointing at the tower. Those are beyond. Extreme means this is like something you want to deal with right away. And by the way, these guidelines are based on thousands of peer-reviewed studies that the government, like the FCC, which has no business making these decisions anyway, they're not a medical organization, they chose to ignore. So they're basing all their information on studies done in 1984, before there were even cell phones. And they were sued in federal court, and I think it was the Children's Defense Fund or something like that, but they lost in federal court 2 years ago, and the judge said they had 6 months to explain why they're not using all these studies to make decisions about what's safe, things that happened after, in the 21st century. And to date, they haven't responded at all. They just, even though there was a federal judgment against them. So that's the state of the nation. And who's to blame is partly the telecommunications lobby, which is probably the biggest lobby right now, but also technology is so incredibly cool. I mean, it's so awesome that people just don't want to give it up. In fact, a friend of my wife's, her husband said that he would be, even if there was a 50% chance of him getting cancer, he wouldn't want to give up his cell phone, or Wi-Fi or whatever it was he was talking
So what you're saying is I probably shouldn't sleep with my iPhone on my heart or my chest at night.
Oh my God, no. And people do, they keep it in their pockets. When women get, keep it in their bras, they end up getting cancer, and you can see
I, I
the
feel like we
cancer.
drive around like everything's Wi-Fi. My car's Wi-Fi and
Yeah,
Bluetooth.
oh yeah,
My
Well, all the
house is
smart
Wi-Fi.
appliances now, everything is Wi-Fi.
everything
like
is Wi-Fi. That's what I'm saying. It's hard to get away from it. On the other hand, the most important, and you brought up a good point, Dylan, the most important time is when we sleep, because that's when the body rejuvenates, and they found this in studies too. So these guidelines, these building biology guidelines, and they're similar to other nonprofit, I don't want to call them businesses, but nonprofits that have come up with guidelines, and other countries other than the US. These are based on sleeping during the sleeping, in other words, in the bedrooms at night.
I mean, so Henry, do you think it's being at proximity to this tower and they're going to be lobbing on the next generation for, I can't get rid of this tower, right?
You're not going to get rid of the tower. What I was saying before is, besides the telecommunications industry, a lot of the reason the media doesn't talk about this, and it's just doesn't get as much attention. It's getting a lot more attention. I'll tell you why. But one of the reasons is people are just, they can't live without this stuff.
Mhm.
I mean, you can't live without driving and being able to have something tell you when to turn instead of having to fuss with a map. And if you're by yourself in the car, that's pretty dangerous. I mean, so it's not only just, gee, this is cool. There's a lot of safety things with it. There's things they can do, but the attention is just isn't there. Anyway, I'm not here to.
So I have about 15 minutes to be able to get through probably some
Okay.
very intense, probably very specific questions. And hopefully we can just help navigate this. And I apologize for my timing here, but
It's okay.
if we need to pick back up, we can. So from the direction of this report, the table 1 RF, that's you standing on the property, pointing the antenna in those directions, and that's the reading, right? The high frequency of
Right.
the reading.
Right.
So as it's pointed away, let's say from the east, right, away from the tower, those readings are fairly.
There's still, I change it to moderate. Building by actually calls it severe. It means do something about this. If it's in the sleeping areas, it's just, you don't have to freak out. You can plan it out, but don't leave it like that. So the slight concern is for most people, and these days a lot more people are becoming electro hypersensitive. Once that happens to you, then it really needs to get lower. These people can't even live. They're just crazed, and I'm seeing a lot more of that these days. But that just to give you, but it's not hard and fast. I mean, it's a continuum, these numbers. So you kind of get a general idea of where in the spectrum this stuff is. But
From a construction
bottom line is, when you're near a big cell tower that has 5G on it right now, it's going to be very, very strong. And
So from a construction method, when the house is built, what is your experience for the readings? How did the readings change once there's a structure involved?
Well, and that all depends, because the radiation can come through windows, or someone. Is your windows going to be e-glass, by the way?
Yes, they're the best windows on the market.
Yeah, so and the more layers that has, that'll block, there's also window film you can put
Mhm.
on that's clear,
Yeah.
that's specifically designed for that, but, and I think that was one of your questions, Karen. But you have to be careful, you have to test for that, because I think if you have e-glass and then you put the film on, it could create, you make matters worse possibly. I get a
Well, this is
sense,
the thing, Henry, we were hoping like with the building materials we're using, I'm a little nervous about that paint.
the
That,
Y shield.
yes, because
Yeah,
listen, Claire's, like we just discussed, Claire, my daughter's gonna be a teenager one day and she's gonna have a cell phone eventually. I mean, it's just unavoidable. And she's gonna be in her Faraday cage painted with the cell phone with Wi-Fi.
really,
That sounds
really
worse.
bad. Well, it's even the way Dillon is describing his houses, and people say they can't get reception.
Right.
That's far worse than getting reception, because what's happening is they are in fact in a Faraday cage. When a signal is weak, like when your number of bars
Yeah.
go down on the phone, it tries harder, so it's putting
Right.
out, the cell phone is
That's
probably
the worst time to be holding your
source.
cell phone. Right.
Well, it's the worst source of electromagnetic, worse than the towers.
Right.
It's just the absolute, I can demonstrate it, I won't because you don't have time, Dylan, but if I take one of my consumer grade meters, put it next to my cell phone, it goes up to 2.5 million microwatts per meter square. You're looking at 6,000 there, which is,
So what you're saying is us having a cell phone in the house is worse than the tower to the west?
well, just having a cell phone generally, I use a cell phone. I keep it in airplane mode. When I need to make a call, I'll turn it on. I have a little case that helps,
Mhm.
that I can shut the cover on and it reduces the radiation somewhat. But I won't hold it toward my ear. I use a headphone. I keep it away from me. If someone's going to be, if your daughter's going to be on a cell phone, please, please, please train her not to hold it up to her
Yeah,
ear.
absolutely.
Get some
No, my whole
headphones.
family's
And
on board. We're all in airplane mode. No one puts it up to the ear anymore, even the laptop. I'm crazy. So I'm doing everything I possibly can, but I have this property. Um, do you think, Henry, that if I did everything I possibly can with all the building materials that Dylan just spoke of, I could create a sleeping environment for my
Well,
kids
yeah,
that,
we already discussed we're going to have that master switch, which will shut off all the
oh,
Wi-Fi
shut off
when
all
we
the
go to bed.
Wi-Fi, right,
That's
Henry, this is
another,
just another thing. We're gonna have a master switch to shut down our Wi-Fi every night.
yeah, that's good. Yes.
You had a
Right.
lot of links on where to get these things, and we're all for that. We're gonna hard link my kids' computers in their bedrooms, so they don't need to be using Wi-Fi on their computers, because they have Wi-Fi in classrooms now, Henry, like full-blown classrooms
Yes, yes,
have
yes.
Wi-Fi. Like,
That
you
the
can't
schools
escape
are,
this, but I just
the schools
want
are
them.
putting up and leasing out their space for
Yeah.
internet.
I
Yeah, no,
know.
I
I mean, so
understand.
like there's only so much I could do, but I'm just committed to I'm really just committed right now to their bedrooms being a low EMF place. And you'll have to come back and test.
So
Correct.
If we had a master switch, so to create a good environment, at least for the sleeping portions, which is the majority of the time that we're going to be in the house. If we had a master switch, so we cut off the Wi-Fi interior to the house, and we have the double block construction so that the foam filled concrete blocks will extend all around the bedrooms.
And the windows. And what about the roof,
And
Henry?
well, the roof is going to be a tile.
Yeah,
Um,
that's nice. Um, some people put on metal roofs because but I'll tell you, if it rains, that's really noisy.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
So,
Um,
but you can put like shielding material in the above the ceiling or whatever it is, it'll help block it. Also around the windows, some metal, because this stuff tends to leak through.
Right, of course.
That being said, what is the possibility of having your daughter use a landline phone when she's in the house and just tell her, use your cell phone when you go out, don't turn it on
Oh,
in
for
the house?
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
My-
you
so
could
that's-
hook up your cell phone now to a line. I mean,
yeah.
you can't get everything, right? But you could,
You can't, everything but the cellular, so you can't make the
Right.
call.
right.
But then
right.
again, that's the other thing. My wife can't even turn on her cell phone ever. She's hypersensitive. But not as bad as some of the people I've seen, but she never ever turns it on.
I don't know how you could
But
walk on
she
planet
used,
Earth. I mean,
well, she's got a computer. She uses Google Voice and that kind of
Yeah.
thing, so she can talk to people on the
I
phone.
mean, so maybe in the midst of construction, when the second floor is built out, you could come and do a few more readings. I
Sure,
could hire you
sure.
again to do that. And we could just
And
see
Henry,
like,
I have one other question, and this is, I don't know, this might seem counterintuitive, but if we, make the walls this thick and with the windows and everything, is that hypothetically when the Wi-Fi is on inside the house, does that possibly make it worse for the occupants of the house
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's bouncing off these walls that it can't
yeah.
escape from?
Yeah, that's why you try to do everything, use not only internet cable, but shielded and grounded internet cable, which is Cat 7, Cat 8. Cat 7 is fine. And and you just don't use anything that's Wi-Fi connected. When you get appliances, make sure you can turn off the Wi-Fi. Some of them
yeah,
you
you
can.
really can't turn off a Samsung TV Wi-Fi, just so you know.
No, so you're watching it and then, but you can connect it through, I have a Samsung, it's connected through an internet cable. It's an older model. The newer Samsungs, unfortunately, even if you turn the Wi-Fi off inside it, as long as it's plugged in, it's still on. It's not the case with the Sonys, but it's just one of those things that drive you crazy, such as you can't get a baby monitor anymore that's not Wi-Fi, but that's
Oh, but you know what,
okay,
excuse
so
me,
the
Henry, I
answer
don't
is
mean to interrupt, but
yes, if you can do this from the start, just try to get everything and not have Wi-Fi on all day, have all your computers and everything wired, and people do this, particularly people who are hypersensitive. They're not going to build a house and go, well, I'll keep the Wi-Fi on. That's advice. People don't, everybody has their own appetite. Like you can tell people a diet and they go, no, I'm gonna eat the way I want to eat or something, and the other thing is everybody's different. Nobody's the same physiologically. So for one person, it may not have as much of an impact. At least they may not feel it as much as the next person. So, and that can change over time too. I wanted to say a few other things that maybe not on your question. So that's more general and you have to decide on that. But the answer is, if you have Wi-Fi in the home, it's not just the Wi-Fi, but everything dissipates with distance. So the strength of the signals, if, keep the Wi-Fi further away, like keep it in the garage or, whatever. As the other thing is, if you get a provider, whether it's Spectrum or whatever, Comcast, make sure they allow you to buy your own modem router, because you can adjust if you own it. You can't do this if you lease it. You can adjust it so it's the right strength for your house, because they make it go 100%, which is why you can see your neighbors' routers all over the place. You don't need it. Even in a house your size, you can put the Wi-Fi somewhere that it just is that strong.
minimum
And
necessary.
it doesn't get less powerful if you're at, if you put it down to, let's say, 30% or 70% or whatever it is. It doesn't get less powerful when you're on the outer edges. It just means how far does it go out. So so that's one thing that's important. The other thing is, if you decide to get one where you can turn your Wi-Fi off easily and you lease it, they don't, they're constantly upgrading the firmware in that. And as soon as they do that, they turn the Wi-Fi back on. There's no way to know that it's on, and you could be on for a month. So yes, turn it off, unplug it at night. But that's one thing. There's another thing I want to talk to about wiring in general, because it's not just the RF. You're building a new house, and the extremely low frequencies that are part of our power, they give off electric fields and magnetic fields, and also dirty electricity. And a lot of this stuff is, even if you unplug everything in your bedroom, a lot of this stuff is coming from the walls. Particularly the electric fields are there regardless of whether something is turned on or turned off. And anytime you have an active wire, a hot wire, it's going to be putting out electric fields. So at least in the bedrooms, in the walls of the bedrooms, recommend using metal-clad cabling, Dillon. So, and it's not just for what's feeding the bedroom, but anything in an adjoining wall. Putting metal-clad cabling is going to cost you more than Romex. In a high-rise building, it's required by National Electric Code, so I never have a problem when I go there with it. But if you have metal-clad cabling, you're not going to get, at least not from the wiring in the wall, you're not going to get electric fields coming out, and you're not going to get the dirty electricity. The magnetic fields will be there if there's wiring errors, pretty much. So you want to make sure that your your mechanical, electrical, plumbing, your MEP, I guess you hire an MEP. I don't know, Dillon, but that.
Yeah, I mean, so that would be more of a commercial application, which obviously is, from a wiring perspective, is substantially more.
It's more expensive, it's harder to work with,
Yeah.
but it's recommended. And I recommend it to anybody building a new house, at least the bedrooms, if not I say do it the whole house, but you've got a budget. And I know that you want to keep to the budget. It's going to do a significant increase to the cost of the wiring. Mm-hmm. Speaking of that, you want to make sure that the drop, the placement of the, where the service drop is not anywhere near a bedroom, Dillon. So if you could have the service drop, let's say, come into the side of the garage and there's no bedroom near there, that's best, because.
Are you talking about where the smart meter is?
That's where the smart meter is. It's also where, if some people put the smart meters, if they have a fence, they'll put it out by the fence, but now you still have the power coming in and it has to go to the main cutoff or breaker panel or whatever it is. Wherever the breaker
probably be on a garage anyway, I would think.
Wherever the breaker panels are and wherever the service drop are, you want to keep them away, because they'll create high magnetic fields. It'll dissipate quickly, but if it's on the other side of where someone sleeps, that's going to be really, really bad. So, and ideally you have the circuit breaker panels close. Like if the smart meter is on the side of the garage, mm-hmm. The circuit breaker panel, if it could be right opposite that, now you've kept them all together, and they're going to do the least impact in terms of magnetic fields and high electric fields. Doesn't matter if you're walking to get your car or whatever. But
do you have a choice of where electricity enters on a property?
That's a question for you, Dillon.
Yeah, I mean, the electrical's coming from Whipple. So there's
that's right. It's in the corner there.
Yeah, there's a power box there at the northeast corner.
Right.
So yeah, we can bring, typically, I mean, we could bring the service panel, the meter, back towards the garage. And so, I mean,
Is their
Well,
garage gonna be on the left side or the right side?
Well, the garage is on the
South.
southeast side of the property. Their
Okay,
bedroom is on the, I'd say on the east side, middle east side of the property. And then the power box service panels coming from the northeast.
yeah,
So
and
they'll
you're,
run their
you run the
service cable
cable,
from
yeah, if
the
you can run the
north.
power under the ground and as far away from the house as possible, I don't know, and then just angle it up. You could figure it. The main thing is, one of the other points I wanted to make is not to have like a feeder cable coming from the circuit breaker panel to the to the service drop, because that's going across the whole house. It'll go through the ceiling somewhere or a floor, and that's going to radiate everything out unless you have metal clad cable for a feeder run. So we just say try to avoid that and do a star-like.
Excuse me 1 second.
Well, the good news is that the power cables are buried at least.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the
Right.
power in Winter Park is underground, so
That's
that's
really
And,
nice.
and the reason that's good is because the thing that creates the high magnetic fields, like when you have overhead power lines, is the separation of the neutral and the hot. Because when the neutral and the hot are together, the magnetic fields cancel each other out from because the electricity is going in two directions. The magnetic fields are directional, they're canceled out. That's why if you measure the magnetic field near a lamp cord that's plugged into a wall, it'll be somewhat high near the cord. You move it away a few inches, it's gone. So power coming in from underground, that's great. When I measured the magnetic fields and electric fields, you could see where it runs through the neighborhood, but it's along the street. And you bring it to the house, they should not allow people to build houses near overhead power lines, but that's another story you don't have to worry about.
not Winter Park. Everywhere else in Central Florida, that's older than, 10 years.
Yeah,
Overhead. Henry, I have a couple of quick questions, just
Sure.
going back to construction methods. So, I mean, obviously we have there's two concerns here, right? There's the radiation coming in to the house, but
Mhm.
then there's a whole second conversation of the radiation, being trapped inside of the house, right?
Right.
So going back to exterior construction, from the testing that you've been involved with, concrete construction better than frame construction with foam?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then
One of the things
metal roof,
I learned coming when we moved to Florida, bought this house on sight unseen that I'm in. And, like many others, it's the cinder block or concrete or whatever it is, and stucco outside. And I couldn't believe how low the radio frequencies, even though, if I go out in the street, in the main street, it's pretty high.
Mhm.
So, and it's also, like you said, it's trees, a lot of stuff will help to block this,
And,
but yes,
and so,
I would do the 2 stories with block.
okay. And so from a roofing application, you think that the metal roof is better than the concrete tile roof?
I'm telling you, metal roof might drive you crazy when it rains.
Well, we use, again, spray foam insulation, open cell
Right.
foam, which does mitigate from the sound.
But yes, metal will help, or just putting in shielding material.
Yeah.
That doesn't
Okay.
necessarily have to be paint. It can also be, there's a lot of different
Sure.
materials you can use that are anything that will create a Faraday shear.
Now, here's another question. So, let's say we go 2-story block construction, and doing some of the research, metal helps block the radiation, the waves, right? So typically, if we were to do concrete block construction, the stucco aggregate doesn't need a wire back lath to hold onto the block, but would the wire back help with
Yeah.
the?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, and then a lot of we've been moving to, what they call gypcrete, lightweight concrete flooring, in between the first and the second floor from a sound abatement.
Right.
Will that method also help, the radiation from the first floor to the second floor? If it's another, concrete aggregate product separating the first and the second floor.
Probably somewhat, yeah.
Okay. And then foam insulation. So insulation, does that help with any of the radiation properties?
The insulation, won't probably do much in terms of the
Okay.
RF.
I gotcha.
I know the problem that building biology has something like 99% of the homes in America are light frame construction. And those are the homes that tend to have the most problem with mold from moisture, even when you put in putting in a full moisture barrier as opposed to a semi-permeable barrier will also trap moisture. Anytime like a handyman puts a nail in, now you've got a leak and mold just goes anywhere. So that's where that autoclaved aerated concrete and some other types of materials come in. But like I said, that's a whole different discussion. Maybe a little.
So
It may be interesting for you to look into that, but
and then from there's a foil back. So we also use a foil back, right?
Right.
Usually on the interior block walls. So in this case, if we did 2-story block construction, we'd also be using a foil back first and second floor. And so I'm assuming because of that foil, right, it has metal properties in that foil. It also kind of creates a shield from as a radiant barrier. And so that would help. Now, I understand the wiring, which would be something we'd have to look into, and then the cost, right, the delta with that.
right.
Appliances, I understand that. The Wi-Fi, obviously, we understand the on-off switch, independent router, and Wi-Fi system. Hardwiring, all TV locations, right?
Well, I'd figure out every place that someone might work with a computer where you might put a TV. It doesn't cost that much to run like Cat 7 cable. The run, we've done it throughout this house, and each additional run that doesn't break the bank. But just put it in all the rooms where people might be wanting to sit down, and because like you said, Karen, you can plug in your tablets and your cell phones into the internet with an adapter, and everything's going to work. All the apps are going to work, except the cellular is the one thing that doesn't translate.
Right.
So, but even if you keep, a router with Wi-Fi that you can turn on, turn off, or whatever it is, it's good to have that, to be able to just say, well, go into this room or whatever. And I don't
look, how many times does your Wi-Fi just kind of get cranky and stuff's not working anyway? So
yeah, we don't even, I never turn on the Wi-Fi in the house, and we don't know, I don't have a problem. It's not like I have terrific Wi-Fi coverage or anything. I mean, cellular coverage, and everything, our TVs are
just real quick, there was this funny article in the Wall Street Journal weekend, how people in tech are going to dumb houses.
yeah.
Dumb meaning no long. Did you see that article, Henry, by any chance?
No, but
Did you read that, Joe?
No, I didn't.
Like all these tech people are building their homes without any smart appliances. I mean, not because of this reason that we're talking about, just because they're annoyed, but everything has to be an app, and
Yeah.
it's overwhelming sometimes.
I
So
was
anyway,
just
go
gonna
ahead.
say,
Oh,
I'm
there's
gonna make
something-
my house that, so I don't have to work when I get home. So
Well, yeah,
my phone
Yeah.
doesn't work. I mean, it just doesn't work at my house, so.
there's something I think you brought up in your email about shielding a smart meter. Well, first of all, see if you can get who is your provider there, the electrical?
Do you know, Joe? We don't even know who our provider is.
Dillon could tell us.
Oh, I mean, it's City of Winter Park has their own electrical service.
Yeah,
Oh.
let's find
Yeah.
out if you can opt out. Not it's
I
very
have a smart
wise.
meter.
Listen,
Yeah.
our neighbor's smart meter, I can't do anything about that. It's facing our
No,
house.
no,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to mention something about smart meters, because you asked about shielding. 90% of the radiation that comes from it goes out. Only
Mhm.
about 10% comes in, and you can easily, and usually there's a metal backing that even reduces that. But there are two other issues with the smart meters. One is they have variable speed, they have power switching supplies in there, which is in everything. It's a law these days, and that creates dirty electricity. And also, where the power comes in, the hot and the neutral wires separate. That's why there's high magnetic fields around there. So the biggest problem with your smart meter and with your neighbors too is because the dirty electricity travels up and down the power lines, is the dirty electricity. I wouldn't worry about it now, because you can always test for it later once you're moved in and all your appliances are on
Yeah.
and lights are on, and that's easy enough to filter out. And depending on how high it is, you can do it with little inexpensive plugins or get a whole house filter. Easy peasy.
Right.
Don't worry about that. As far as your neighbors, if you do put a shield around your neighbors, it's
I
going
don't
to
know.
push their signal back into their house, because remember, it reflects back in. So it depends on your ethics, really.
Dillon, I know you're on a timeline here, so if there's anything else that you want to touch on, or if we think, we can always email Henry.
I mean,
I
I think I think I asked all the questions I had. I just wanted to, know if there's anything else from a construction method that we can help, facilitate and to make the house, cleaner for the longevity. So,
Let me give you a few quick tips. I'll write them down and send them to you too.
okay.
Avoid dimmer switches. They're a very bad source of dirty electricity and magnetic fields. If you must have them, don't put them in the bedroom. Just don't put dimmers at all. It doesn't matter whether they're on or off. And don't use any compact fluorescent lighting or fluorescent lighting. Also very bad. And just in general, appliances away from the bedrooms. So wherever you place your HVAC system, for example, not near there. I won't get into stuff like ERVs or dehumidifiers or anything like that. You don't plan on solar, do you? And
No.
doing any solar? Okay. If you do, talk to me first. There's
Okay.
some companies that are better than others for that. Circuit breakers. Drop. I think, oh yeah, grounding. Do you know, have you gotten that far, Dylan, with method of grounding the house?
I mean, there's a typical, just standard grounding rods that's
Yes,
built
okay.
into the
Good,
foundation.
okay. So you want to keep I wasn't sure if you're going to do an oofer or whatever it is, but you want to keep it outside the envelope of the house. But the NEC code says to use a ground wire, from the smart meter or whatever it is. That's like, I don't know, 4 AWG or 6 AWG. You want to do at least a 1/0 or 1/0. Now there's a much thicker. That'll help get rid of a lot of the any kind of net currents or whatever that can come in, and make sure not to, is the plumbing gonna be like PEX or what?
We use PEX, yeah, PEX. A and
Okay, that's
B.
good. Then don't have to bring that out. I was gonna say not to have the system ground touching the plumbing if it's copper, but that's
Okay,
think-
well, that's really thorough. Thank you so much, Henry.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Henry. I appreciate it.
well,
Okay.
I am gonna invoice you, but it's just, I mean, not a lot.
Oh,
It's
I
not-
know, of
anyway.
course.
understand.
This is your expert time, so of course.
Yeah.
And we'll see if you could come out again
Oh, I'd be just delighted.
and
come.
we could go to lunch again.
That would be fun. That was a
Yeah, so
really-
when we're almost done, I guess we could have you come out, take more readings, see if there's any last minute things we could do. Honestly, I'm trying to avoid that shielding paint and just have the construction do the job for the bedrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
But thank you, Henry.
Hey.
You've enlightened me. I want to throw away all my Apple devices now. Work on a pad.
All
I
right.
know it's almost like it's almost a topic that you don't really want to know about, because once you start looking into it, you can't live without it. It's a difficult area to
yeah, the world has really changed, and in some ways it's so great, and then you start to find this underbelly of the stuff.
yeah.
All right, I gotta jump, guys. All
All
right.
right. Thank you
Hey,
again,
Joe, it was
Henry.
great.
We'll talk
Nice to
soon.
meet
Thank you so much, Dylan. Second time today.
Take care.
Dylan, when does he expect to complete?
Well, so we're in permitting now, so we are expecting our permit to come out, hopefully May 1st, and we'll start, commencing thereafter.
What is it? How long a timeline take? till
Usually around a 12-month build time. A house of this size may run a little bit longer, but we've been averaging right at 12 months.
Well, I'm sure it's going to be extraordinarily beautiful. Do you
We think so.
Do you have a standard model, or do you just design it from
Oh,
scratch?
everything's custom. So custom created to the owner's preferences. So we have not done two homes the same. Very rarely do we do the same finishes inside. So everything is unique to the client. And so that's why it takes, sometimes we take, a little bit longer to build, but it's usually based on finishing those details.
Oh, there's one more thing I wanted to tell you, and I'll tell you both. I don't know if I told you this, Karen, but there's this book by one of the building biology instructors. She's not the EMRS side of the house, but she's an architect. Her name is Paula Baker Laporte, and she's written a house. It's been through a number of a book. It's gone through a number of iterations. It's called Prescriptions for a Healthy House, and you want to get 4th edition to it.
Okay.
And it's by her and this guy John C. Banta, who's like probably the most foremost expert on mold. And you can if you get it in Kindle edition, it's very cheap and it's easy to
Okay.
make. So
Okay, great. I'll write that down. More
Prescriptions for a Healthy House, Paula Baker-Laporte.
Paula Baker LaCroix. Okay, great.
But get that 4th edition. The earlier editions are very hard to
Okay.
follow,
Oh, sorry, getting this phone call.
Okay,
Okay. Thank you again, Henry. Oh, we're done, right?
yeah.
Okay. All right, Dylan, thank you so much.
Take
Thank you
care.
both for your time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.